Hello friend, how are you? Welcome to Tripan Study Center. Today we are doing most important chapter of history. What is the topic today? Understanding the 18th century India. There is a most important chapter. A first point arrive here, decline of the Mughal Empire. There is important here, the decline of the Mughal Empire. Here, the first of all, I see there the background. The background is the most important of the Mughal Empire here. The unit of the stability of the Mughal Empire was the second during to the long and strong reign of the empire Aurangzeb. The Aurangzeb is the last is a Sultanate, and the however is the spirit of the setback on the is the advisor to the circumstance in the Mughal administration was still quite an absent on the Mughal army strong at the time of the death in 1707. This year generally is considered to separate the era of the great Mughals from that of the lesser Mughals. After the death of Aurangzeb, the Mughal authorities is began. It was not in a position of the militaries is interforce interregulation in all part of the empire. As a result, many is a provisional is a governor started to their assist to their authorities. In due to the course of time, there is a gain independent status. At the same time, many as kingdom which were subjugated by the Mughals also is a claimant there is a independence, and some new regionals is a groups also is a consolidating and emerge as a political power with all this development. The period between 1707 and 1761, third battle of Panipat, where is Ahmad Shah Abdali is defeated the Maratha chief. The witness is the emergence of regional identity that is a better but is a political and economical decentralization. At the same time, international as well as the international trade in a local raw materials, the artifact and grain is a created is a strong ties of economic interdependence and perspectives of political and military relation. There is the most important here, and the next year the passing of the Mughal Empire. There is most important topic here. In 1707, when the Aurangzeb died and serious threat from to the peripheries had begun to be centers as the problem at the core of the empire. The new empire is Bahadur Shah I Shah is Alam. The ruling to 707 to 12 followed the policy of the compromise is a predominance all the noble who had to support this evil. And he is a granted this is appreciate territories and their postings. He never abolished the judges, but there is fought to collect the tax were not effective. In the beginning, he tried to gain of great control over to Rajput state of the Rajas of the Amber, that is the Jaipur and the Jodhpur. When his attempt met with the form of resistance, he is realized there is a necessity of the settlement with them. However, the settlement did not be restored them to be fully committed to the warriors for the Mughal case. The emperor, as a policy to avoid the Marathas, was also that of follow heart rates is a correlations, and they continue to be a fight among themselves as well as again to the Mughal in the Deccan. Bahadur Shah was, however, successfully in the consolidated to the Chhatrasal and the Bondel chief of Charaman, the Jat chief, and they later also joined him to be a companion against the Sikh. Is important, and there is a the Jat chief. They later also joined him in the campaign against the Sikh. Is important here, and Jahandar Shah. Jahandar Shah is ruled to 1712 to 13. Is only 1 year. Was a big and the ineffective ruler. His vizier is a Mughal Fakhr is Khan assumed to be executive direction of the empire with as an unprecedented power. And Zulfikar is believed that it was necessary to establish a friendly relation with the Rajputas and the Maratha and to the consulated to the Hindus and chief chieftain and generally is ordered to be save the empire. He reversed their policy of Aurangzeb, the hati to the Jaja, and there is abolished his country to the old policy of his suspicions against the Sikh. His goal was to reconcile all those who were to the willing to be shared power within the Mughal institutional framework, and Zulfikar Khan is made a several attempt at reforming the economical system. He fell in the effort to the enhance of the revenue collection of the state. When the Feroz Tughlaq is a sire, is a son of the slain princes, is a Musk Shah, is challenged the Jahandar Shah and the Zulfikar Khan with a large army with a found from the Bihar and Bengal. The rulers found there is an offer to depict it to the depression. There is allotted their open places, even the wrappings and the gold and the silver from wall and the ceiling. In order to the finance the quarters, his army is a Frekha year is a ruling to the 1713 to 19. That is the most important period of time when his victory was the accession to the Sindhias brother as a Abdullah is a Khan and Hussain Ali Khan is a Barab. And Sayyid is heading to the office of the Wazir, and the chiefs is a Baksis and the acquire control over to the affair of the state. There is a promoted, there is a policy is inserted to aided by the Zulfikar Khan, and there is as the other similar taxes where the immediately is a public is abolished. The brother finally suppressed to the Sikh and revolt and tried to the consulate the Rajput, the Marathas and the Jat. However, the policy was hampered by divisiveness between the Wazir and the Emperor, as the group tended to all themselves as with one of the other. The Jat once again is started pondering the royal highest between Agra and Delhi, and Farooq Siaya, that the Raja Rai Singh to be lead to the fugitives is a campaign against them, but Wazir is negotiated is a settlement over to the Raja as head. As a result, throughout the northern India, Zamindar as either revolted to the volatiles or simply refused to be pay or assist to the revenue. On the other hand, Farooq is a Sayyid is a compound into the difficulties in the Deccan by sending letter to be some Maratha chief urging them to be opposed. There is a force as the Deccan governors who is happened to be a deputy and the associate of the Sayyid Hussain Ali Khan. Finally, in 1719, the Sayyid brother is both is Ajit Singh is a Jodhpur and the Maratha force to Delhi to the depose the emperor. There is important here. The murder of Farooq Iyer is a create a wave of revolution against the Sayyid among the various factions of nobility, and who were also is a jealousy of there is a growing of power. There is jealousy of the growing of power. Many of this is a particularly the all nobles of Aurangzeb as a time. Recent is there is a Wazir as encouragement of revenue farming, which in their view was a mere shopkeeping and volatile to the age old Mughal notation of statecraft. In the Farooq Iyer as a place the brothers is arise to be a throne, three young princes is a quick succession within the 8th is a month in the 1719. Two of these are Rafiud is a Razat is a Rafiud Seva is the second die of the conservations, and the third who is Azim. The title of Muhammad Shah exhibited to sufficient vigor to set about the freely himself for the brother as a control. A powerful group under the leadership of the Nizam ul Malik is a Chen is a Quraysh Khan, and his father as a cousin Muhammad Amin Khan. The two eminent nobles emerged finally to the is a Dazalosis as a side brothers is a 1720. By the time of Muhammad Shah, ruled to 1719 to 48, as a come to power, the nature of the relationship between the empire and the nobility had almost a completely changed. Individual interest of the nobles had come to the guide. There is a course of the POLITIES and the state activities. In 1720, Muhammad Amin Khan replaced the Sayyid Abdullah Khan as a Wazir. After Amin Khan is dead, January 1720, the office was occupied by the Nizam ul Malik for the very period until Amin Khan as a son Umar ul Din's Khan is assumed to the title in July 1724 by a claim of heredity of right. The nobles themselves they visually discredited this is his appointment, and by this time the noble had assumed lot of power. They used to get a performance is issue in the name of empire in their favor, and the position of the empire was perceived as a symbol only without a real power. The real power is seated with the important group of nobles. The noble is a control of the central office is maintained as all empire outlook, even if there is more is a concerned with the stability of the religious as where they have the zagirs. The firmans is a mandated is things is a content right or a special preeminence in the governors, fazudars and other local official where is a sand in the conformity with the tradition. In the name of the empire, individually falling to the Aurangzeb as a sensation also contribute to be a decline of the royal authorities. The Jahandar is a Shah is asked denied the dances as a Farooq Ayyar was a vehicle to the minded. Muhammad Shah was a phrase and founder of the easy of luxury. The opinion of the empire is a favorite is a very in the appointment and promotion and dismissal as even to the provenance. What is the most important here? The rise of the regional polities and state. There is the most important topic here, the rises of the regional politics and the state. The chapter of understanding of 18th century India, there is the most important chapter. Here, the state that arose the India during the phase of Mughal decline and following century, roughly the 17 to 1850. The very greatly in the term of the source is longevity and the stability of character. Some of them, such as the Hyderabad in the south, was localized in on the area that had is a harbored to the regional state in the immediate of pre-Mughal period and thus had to the order local and regional tradition of state formation. Other were states that had a more original character and derived from every specific process that had taken a policy in the course of the later 16th and 17th century. In a particular, many of the posts of Mughal state were based on the ethnics and sectarian groupings, the Marathas, the Jats, and the Sikh. In due to course, their encouragement of the resign of emboldenment to the local land and power holder to take up to the arm against external authority. However, the mature is able to and the confessed preventing this is a rebel from consolidating there is an interest into the effective challenge to the empire. They relied on the support from to the kinfolk and peasant and a smaller jamidar of their own caste. Each local group wanted to maximize it is a share of the prosperity at the expense of the other. The insist of imposing as the empirical symbol was inherent in the kind of power politics that emerged. Each of the contenders in the resign in the proportions to be strength located from outside is the opportunity to establish a dominance over to the other in the neighborhood, and they all the needed a kind of the legitimacy and which is a so conventionality the available in the long the accepted is the authorities of the Mughal Empire. They had no fear is a collectively accepting the symbolics is a hegemony of the Mughal center, which had come to coexist with there is a ambition. The gradually is a beacon of the center authority. Set in the motion are new types of provisional kingdom. Nobles with the ability of strength sought to be built a regional base from themselves. The Wazir is a chant is Khan himself. So at the path having to the fail to the reform the administration is a recognized his office in 1723 and in October 1724 marched south and established the state of Hyderabad in a Deccan. The Mughal court as a chief concern at this stage was to be ensure the flow of the necessary revenue from their permanence and maintenance of at least the semblance of imperial unities. Seizing upon to the disintegration of the empire, the Marathas now to the began there is a northward expansion and overrun to the Malwa, Gujarat and Bundelkhand, and then is a 38 to 39. Nandir is a Shah who is established himself as the ruler of Iran invaded India. Our next topic is the most important arrive here, the Marathas' power. There is the most important topic, Maratha arrive, the Marathas' power is important. There is a no doubt that is a single most important power that emerged in the long as twilight of their Mughal dynasty as the Marathas. The most important Marathas warriors clan was of the Bhonsles is a Shivaji Bhonsle and emerged as the most powerful figure in the southern politics. There is the most important here, Shivaji Bhonsle, and the good fortune of Shivaji did not fall to his son and successor Sambhaji and his younger brother Azamran, and from time the pair to the Marathas' power was on the decline. But a recovery was effected in the earlier 18th century in somewhat a change of circumstance is a particular important phase in their respect in the region of Sahu, who is succeed is a Raja Ram in the 1708 and Sahu is resigned. Later the form of for decline up to the 1749, it was marked by there is a ascendance of the lingas of the Chittapavan Brahmans and minister, who eventually come to the control of central authorities in the Maratha state. The Bhonsle is where to reduce a figurehead head of the holdings their title of Peshwa is the chief minister. Peshwa is the chief minister, the first truly permanent figure of the line in a Balaji Vishwanath and Balaji Vishwanath, who had helped the Shah in the rise of a power, and Vishwanath and successor is a Baji Rao. One is a Peshawar between the 1720 and 1740. The managed to be a requestist of the Maratha state to as a far great extent than had been to the case of under to the earlier Bhonsle. There is systematic lies in the practice of the tribute and the gathering from the Mughal territory. Under the head of the Sardesh Mukh, and the child is a two term is a responding to the proportion of the tribute or collected. They seem to be have a considering method of assessment and collection of the land revenue, and there are other taxes. On the line of the Mughals, such of the revenue is a terminology used in the document of the Peshwa, and the subordinate is derived from preparation. This is a suggest a greatest is a continuity between the Mughal and Maratha revenue practice. There is important, and the next year the Maratha Confederacy. There is important. By the close of Sahu has resigned a few power, Maratha kingdoms were in the complete control of their territories. This period was the development of the sophisticated network of trade, banking and finance in the territories under the control. The banking house and the base at the Pune had there is a branches in Gujarat, Ganges valleys and the south. Attention was also paid to the maritime affair. The Balaji Vishwanath took once some care of the cultivate Angus clan, and which control I fell to the vessels west of Colaba and other center of the west coast. And this ship is posed a threat not only the new English settlement of Bombay, but is the protagonist as to Goa and Westins and the Daman. On the other hand, this is also emerged a far large dominance of activity away from the original, the heartland of the Marathas. Of these chiefs, there are most important were to the Gaikwads, is the Gaikwad, is the Sindhias and the Holkars. Is also there where is the branches of the Bhonsle family that is quoted as a Kalanpur and the Nagpur, and the main line is remained in the Deccan heartland at the Sataras. Let us examine there is the area of the influence. The most here next point the Bhonsle of Nagpur. There is important here. Unlike the Kolhanpur is a Bhonsle, is a Kolhapur Bhonsle, and they are descendant of the is a Mokozi and Thanawars is a both of whom is a claiming to state equal to that of Satara Raja. The land is a Nagpur was a clearly is a subordinate to be star ruler. Accurately figure from this line is a Raghozozis Bhonsle is ruled to the 1727 to 55, who was responsible for the Maratha incursions and Bengal and Bihar in the 1714th century and the earlier 1750th century. The relation of his ancestor is a Janozis, Sabozis, and Madhozis, who with there is a Peshawar on the Satara land were wearing, and it is in the this is a sense that this is a dominance of the can be regarded as only closely is a confederated and rather than to the tightly bonded together. The other subordinate rulers who is emerged under to the teachings and umbrella provided by the Sataras ruler and his Peshawars were equally somewhat the opportunities in their use of politics. The next year, the Gaikwads as Baroda. The Gaikwads and gathering to the prominence in the 1720 and initially they were as a subordinate not only to be a Bhonsle but also to be a powerful Awadh family. However, was only after the death of the Shah who went to the power of the Peshawar was further enhanced. That is the position of the Gaikwads and ruler improved. By the early 1750th century, there is a right on the large protection of the revenues of the Gujarat were recognized by the Peshawar. The expansion of there is a Mughal governor of the Gujarat province from his the capital of Ahmedabad in 1752 set the seal on the process. The Gaikwad is afforded to the however to establish their capital in the Baroda, causing to the regiment in the network of trade and conservation in the area. The rule at the Baroda in the Damazi is a in 1768 was followed by the period of the some tumults and there is a Gaikwads still remain partly depend on the Pune and the Peshawar, especially to the intervenes in the moment of sensation crisis. The eventually is a sensation of Damazis is a fatal Fateh Singh is ruled to 1771 to 89. Did not remain allied to the Peshawar for the long in the later of 17th century to and earlier 17th century. He is close to the ingots of the settlement with the English East India Company, where there is eventually is a lead to increasing of British interference in his affair. By the 18th centuries, there are British either than to Peshawar were to finally elevated and determined the sensation among to the Gaikwads who become a subordinate and the ruler under them into the 19th century. The next year, the Holkars of the Indore. In the case of the Holkars, their rise in the state and the wealth were particularly rapid and the market. Initially, they had a very little political power. However, by the 1730th century, their chief Maratha Roy is a Holkar as a considering his position. He was gated as a large share of the Chautha collection in the Malwa and eastern Gujarat and the Khandesh. Within a few years, is the Maratha Roy is considered his own principalities at Indore, from which his successor is controlling important trade routes as well as the crucially trading is the center of the Brahmanpur is after him the control of densities of fortune fell is largely to his son as a Vidho. Alayabai, who is ruled from the 1765 to 1794, and brought his Holkar power to great glorious. And the Nevantness is the who is ruled from there is a sensation could not be equal that of the next great chieftain to the family of the Sindhias. The next year, the Sindhias as a Gwalior. There is important. The Sindhias is a prominent place of himself in the northern India politics in the decline to the flowings. Their third battle of the Panipat is 1761. The third battle of Panipat is 1761. Again, like the Holkars, the Sindhias were based largely in the central India. The first Ujjain and other is from the last quarter of 18th century in Gwalior during the long reign of the Mahadai Sindhias 1761 to 94 family as a fortune were truly considered. Mahadai is a proved to the effective is a invectives is a military commander. He employed as the large number of Europeans is a soldier in this force. His power grew rapidly after the 1770s. During there is the period of the managed to make a substantial to the road into the northern India that has been to the weakened by the Afghan attacks. He intervened with some effect in the Mughals court during there is a resign of the Shah Alam II. The Mughal kings made him to be deputy regent of the affair in their mid-18th century. His hero fell not only across the province of Delhi and Agra, but also on there is Rajasthan, Gujarat, making him to the most is a formidable is a Marathas leader of era. The Vasili and the East India Company were very acute in the alliance with him. His relation with the acting Peshawar is a Nana Fateh versus is a Pune, where is a fight with the tension. Eventually, there is a momentum is generated by the Mahadazis could not be maintained by their successor. Daulat Roy is a Siddha is ruled to the 1794 to 1827, who was defeated by their British and forced by the treaty in the 1803 to be surrounded. There is a territory both to the northern and the west. The carriers of the sum of this is a pentacted is especially is a Mahadaji Sindha is insulated to the potencies of Mughal symbol even to the face of Mughal decline. For the instance, is after returning, there is important for returning is the Gwalior from the British. Mahadajis took care for have his is a control of a town and centration by the Mughal Empire. Equally to the Jazuli is granted there is a preferences and the title of granted to him be Shah Alam, such as Amir al-Umara and head of the Amirs. And the nanny sees a waking is the metal that again. In his he was not alone. Instance in the 18th century of the state that volleys the tapes of our pretense of the allegiances to the Mughals are rare. Rather, there is a Mughal system of honor and the title as well as the Mughal derived from the administrative terminology and the SIKHS is a practice is a continue to the depth there a decline of the empirical power. The next topic is the most important here, the Nawab of Bengal. There is an important. The Nawab of Bengal, the Masik is a Quail Khans is started his career of Diwan of Bengal under Aurangzeb. Become a virtually is independent with the growing of being of the central authority. However, there is a regular sent tribute to be a Mughal empire. Ali Wardi Khan is a deposed the family of Masjid Kulik Khan and they made himself their Nawab in a 1739. There is an important point here, the Diwan of Bengal under Aurangzeb and he was the himself of the Nawab in a 1739. And this is a Nawab is about this stability and there is a pace and promoted to agriculture, trade and industries. The Nawab here on the stability there is a pace of promoted to the agriculture, trade and industry. The equal opportunity where is given to be both Hindu and Muslim. But the Nawab is could not be visualized. There is a long term of implication of the presence of the European trading companies and neglected of military is a predominance is in a 1756 to 1757. At this ancestor of Ali Warda is Khan, Sirajuddaulah had to be fight to the English East Company come over to the trading right. Is important here. The sensation of the Ali Bardai Khan and Sirajuddaulah is had to be fight to the English East India Company over to trading of right and is defeated in the battle of the Plessy is the June 1757 is the power there is a bait to the subjugations of Bengal as well as India. The next year, the Nawab of the Awadh, there is important, the Nawab of Awadh. With the weakenings of central control of Mughal, Suba of the Awadh also say as an emerging ambition of the provisional governor. Is Sadar Khan is Abraham ul Malik. Sadar Khan is a disciplined, there is a local jamidars and give a shape to the well paid. And the Bel armies and the Bel trained to the army. Before his death in 1739, Sadat Khan is made to the provisional head and authorities is a position. And his sensation is a Safadar is a Jung and the Asaf of Ud Dawla is not only to play a very decisive role in the politics of northern India but also give a long-term administrative stability to be a Nawab of the Awadh. Under the is a Nawab is a firstly Firozabad and then to Lucknow become to the central rival of the Delhi in their sphere of arts, literature and craft. Regional architecture is reflected except in the form of the laboratories and other buildings. The evolution of the dance from the Kathak was the outcome for the culture synthesis. There is important here, a Kathak was the outcome of culture synthesis. So our next topic is important here, a Sikh of Punjab. There is a most important Sikh as a Punjab. The Mughal force suppressed the Sikh under to the Banda Bahadur. But this did not be put an end of the Sikh resistance of the Mughal authorities. In the 17th-20th century and the 17th-30th century, Amritsar is emerged as a center of Sikh activity. Mainly because of there is a nice and the image is a center. Kapur Singh, there is the most important of the Sikh leader of the time. Operated from it is a weakness and he gradually set about the consolidating a revenue is a calm military system. And some Sikh groups also started to the consolidating themselves as a political force and this activity is discouraged. There is a time to the Mughal is a governor of the Lahore Suba to set up a independent power base of himself in the region. And there is a first of those is a Samad Khan and there is a son of the Zakaria Khan is attempted to be controlled of Savagan's power. After the latter is dismissed in the 1745, the balance shifted still to further in the favor of the Sikh warrior leaders, such as the Jassa Singhs Alwalia, and he later on founded the kingdom of the Kapurthala. Is important here. Who is the founder of Kapurthala? There is the Jassa Singh is Alwalia, and he is later on founded the kingdom of Kapurthala. The mushrooming of packets under the authority of Sikh leaders was a feature of the two decades is the proceedings of Ahmad Shah of Delhi's invention of the Punjab, and this process was evident in the eastern Punjab and the Baridova, and there is a thought that a principal oppositions are faced by the Abdali in the campaigns of the 1750th century and 1760th century in the Punjab come from the Sikh. The Marathas also play a role of the significance on this occasion. And eventually while there is a mid and 1760th century Sikh authorities is over, is the Lahore was established and the Afghan were not able to the consolidate there is a earlier gain. Under the Ahmad Shah's successor, Timur Shah, ruler 1772 to 93, some of the territories and towns that had been taken by the Sikh such as Multan and were recovered, and the descendant of the Ahmad Shah continued to be a harbor his ambition in this direction until the end of the century. But there is 1770th century, there is way to dealing with the confederations of about 60 Sikh is a chieftains, and some this were to be emerged as a priestly is a state under to the British, such as a Nawab and the Patiala. Nabha and the Patiala. Nabha is important here and Patiala also. The sixth is a chiefdoms as a continue to the many of the administrative practice initiated by there is a Mughal. The main is a subordinate of the chief where is give to the Jagir assignment. The prestige of the culture of the Mughal bureaucracies continued to the halt Seven. It was a one such as a chief Ranjit Singh, the grandson of the Charhat Singh is a Surkakis, who is eventually believed to be the principal transport the very time into a large entirety. Ranjit Singh has a effective to rule of the last state for a decline from the 1799 to the 1839. The power of English East India Companies was the growing in all parts of the country during this period. Within the 10 years of the death, the British had an exit to the Punjab. His rise to the power was based on the superior military force and partly is survived by the Europeans is a memories and there is a static location of the territories that he had inherited from to the father. Ranjit Singh as a kingdom representing to the is a culmination of near a century of Sikh rebellings and against the Mughal rule. It was based on their intelligent application of the principles of the statecraft. He used as a capital there is a great trading city of the Lahore, which he is captured in 1799. Having gained control of the trade route, and he imposed to the monopoles on their trade in a salt, grain, and textile from Kashmir to enhance his revenues. Using this is a earning, he is built up an army of 40,000 cavalry and the infantry by the year of 1809, and he was the up to the master of the most of Punjab. Our next topic is the most important here, Jaipur and other Rajputana state. That is important, the Rajput and other Rajputana state. The Jaipur is earlier is Amber in there is a eastern Rajasthan was a Rajput principality is controlled by there is a Kachuwala is a clan, and in the earlier 18th century the ruler Jai Singh is a Savais took the step to increase his power and manifold, and this was done by the arranging to have a Jagir assessment in the vicinity of the home territory, and second here by the taking of the right on the land revenue through is a farming for collection of a land tax right on their parcel of land that are the rentally by there is the state to on the individual, which was gradually made a permanent by the time of his death in the 1743. Jai Singh after the Worms Jaipur's come to be named and had emerged as a single most important ruler in the region, and most of the larger Rajput states were constantly involved in their petty quarrels and civil wars. Ajit Singh is a Marwara is killed by his own son. Is important. Ajit Singh is a Marwara was killing by his own son. In the 1750 centuries, is a Surajmal of the Jat ruler of the Bharatpura is like a Jai Singh adopted to the modified form to the Mughal revenue administration in his territories. However, by this time there is a fortune of the Jaipur kingdom were seriously in a question. Under threat from to the Marathas is records as had to be taken adopt to the short-term physical accession. At the same time, a series of the crop failure in a 1750th century and 60th century adversely to affected the Faisal is the agriculture. The second half of the 18th century was thus marked by an economical depression, accompanied by a decline in the political power of Jaipur. During this period, Jaipur became a vulnerable is a target and from to the ambition of the Marathas and Mahadaji Siddhai in a particular. The state are discussed so far with their expansion of the Marathas, where is all the land locked, and this did not mean that the trade was not an important element in there is a make-up for the kingdom of the Ranjit Singh was closely is linked to the trade. However, lack of success to the sea as greatly is increasing the vulnerability of a state, and particularly in an era when the major power was the English East India Company itself initially is a maritime enterprise. The most important topic here, political in southern India. That is the most important here of politics in southern India. In the south, as unlike there is an area discussed so far, a several state did make a determined bid in this period to the considered there is a power by the use of access to sea and ports. A principle among these were to the Travancore in the Kerals under Marathanda is Burma and the Rama Verma and the Masur under the Haidar Ali and the Tipu Sultan. There is the most important here. A principle is among this is the Travancore in the Kerals. Kerala is the under the Marathanda is Burma and the Rama Verma and Masur here under to their Haidar Ali and the Tipu Sultan. This estate rose to the prominence is only in the later half of the 18th century or at their least after 1740. Before that, southern India since it has been dominated by a group of Muslim notables who had accompanied their Mughal expansion into the region in the 16th century and 1690th century or the easy had come in a second wave that followed the immediately after 17th century. Many of this is a notable set of the themselves up as a tribute of playing a chief under the Mughal authority. Some of them were is a relatively is a Patis, Nawabs, deputies of the Balghat and northern is a Karnataka, such as Abdul Rasul Khan of Sira. A few of them were is a political heavyweight like their Nizam ul Malik himself and Sadahul Khan at the court. The Nizam ul Malik had consolidated his position in Hyderabad by the 40th century, whereas the court is a principalities had emerged. Some three is declared to the earlier. Neither of these rulers will be establishing a decent succession and claim it fully sovereignty. And thus there is a continue to be cast is a himself as the representative of Mughal authority. And southern India is a politics in their 17th-20th century emerged therefore as a game with a many patriots player and three is a formidable one. The Maratha is a both at the Tanuhar was the Izivir and the Nizam and the Akkot is a Karnataka is a Nawab. Is important the Nawab of the Karnataka. In the second half of the 18th century, the power of all three of these is a center declined. The sensation struggle at the Arcot in the 1740 and earlier 1750th century left the rulers open to the finance and manipulation by private British merchant. To who and the whom there is wherein there is increasingly in the depth for the war expensive. In the 1750th century, the power of Hyderabad also declined after the death of the founder, the Nizam ul Malik. The control of the coastal districts was soon lost. The leaving the kingdom of the landlocked and the relatively suppressed is populated. In this context, the only option for the state was to build on elaborate and the well-organized war to the machines while the keeping external supply lines open. The control of trade was also seen as crucially in the statecraft of the period. The state of the Travancore, this principle were put into the practice in the southern Kerala. State of the Venada Travancore by the Marathanda is Burma is ruled to the 1729 to 58. The king is initiated with a few source of strengthness his authority, and this where is the first year he is a build of the substantially standing army about 50,000, and second year reduce the power of the Nayar aristocracies on which the ruler of their area had earlier been to depend on militaries, and third year fortified and the northern limit. This is a kingdom at the so-called Travancore line. It was also the policy of this ruler to be extend protagons to be a Syrian Christian and a large trading to community within his the domain and mean of the limiting Europeans' involvement in the trade. The key is accommodative was the purpose is but other is a good also come to be defined as a royal monopoles items requiring of the license for a trade, and this policy were continue in a large measure by there is a Marandas as a sensation Rama Burma, the ruled year 1758 to 98, who was able to defend his kingdom successfully against the dangerous new rebel power of Monsieur. The next point is here the rise of the Monsieur. The rising of Monsieur is the most important here under the ruler of the Vidya then centuries such as the Kantivarva, is a Narva, Saraja and the Chikka Devaraja. Monsieur is emerged as an important state. However, Mysore was the landlocked kingdom and dependent therefore on trade and military supply. The bothly though there is the port of the Indian East Coast. As these ports come to the increasingly under the Europeans' control, the Mysore has a vulnerability of increase from the 70 to 60th century step where it is taken a change the situation. Akrawali is the commander of Maghwent origin is a Hyder Ali, assumed to be effective is a power in the kingdom in 1761 and reducing the Vidyas to the figurehead and the replacing their powerful careless family of minister. The first Hyder and then after the 1782 his son Tipu Sultan made an attempt to be considered as a Monsieur and make it is a kingdom with the success to the north on but both coastal and peninsular India. Against the controversy is the inhabitant of their on the north upland is the kingdom of the Kodogo Krug and they were relatively successfully. The coastal Karnataka and northern Kerala come under there is a way of availing Tipu to the open diplomatic and the commercial relation on his own account with the Middle East. Tipu's as ambition apparently greatly succeed as those of their father and the stove the active to escape their all pervasive is a shadow of Mughal sovereignty and the discussed above. However, the problem with the Monsieur of the Hyder and Tipu was there is inabilities to be built on the internal conscience and there is a dependence on the migrant and mercenaries for the both military and is a physical expertise was a considerable and there were a way to restricted by the local chief to so called to the polygars and more crucially was the fact that why there is a 70th century and the Mysore face is for a Debbas military adversary in the form of English East India Company. We did not allow it any breathing room. It was the English who is denied a Monsieur assessed to be relatively rich is agriculture, land and port of the Coromandels is a coastal plan in eastern India. Tipu was also finally killed in 1799 by the English force. There is important Tipu was also finally killed in the English force. Our next topic is the most important here. The economic in there is the 18th century India. There is important. The economic in the 18th century India. The 18th century can hardly be said to be exhibited by the substantial economical continuity between its earlier and later part. It was a period of the considerable is a politically turmoil in India, one in which their state were formed to the resolve in a quick sensations, and that there was a great deal of the fluidity in a system. It is of course the truth that arrived by there is a military force would have a cause to the declarations. The destruction of the aviation is a tanks. There is a foreseeable explorations of cattle wealth, and even to force a mass of the masses of people were not unknown in the war of the 70th century as thereafter. All this is a must have had to the harmful effect on the economical stability and really there is impulse to about the growth. And when the view from to Delhi that 18th century is the continually a gloomy period, the attack of the Nadir Shah went to the Ahmad Shah Abdali, and finally his attack by the Rohillas is who is controlled to Delhi in a 1761 to 71. Put the city is a state of regular destruction, and this is a perspective can hardly has been to the share by the inhabitant of other centers in India. Within the three Vedrams, Pune, Patna, and Jaipur, and there was a process economical is a rotation that is a company the political decentralization of era, and it is on the account of the this that of the experience of Delhi and Agra cannot be generalized. However, there are conditions of different reasons where to not be uniform. In some, the first half of the 18th century of witness is a continued expansion Bengal, Jaipur and Hyderabad. For example, while some other where is a later is a bloomers as it is the case of Travancore, Mysore or the Punjab. No single chronology of economical is a prosperity and the decline in the likely therefore to be fit all the reasons of the India is the epoch. Depth there is some keys of weakness and there are contradictions. The economical of 18th century of perform well in the sphere of agriculture. Inland trade of the urbanization and there were some area which is a say is a agricultural decline. Often because of interstate is a warfare in the Punjab and part of the northern India. The lack of new agriculture method and techniques was overcome with their experience and management of the land and labor. Data of the Tehsil paper use and the compare the vis-a-vis any in the Akbari proved that it was not be lack of cultivable land but there is important and there is some area which is a agriculture decline of this because the interstate welfare is a Punjab and part of the northern India. There is important here the compare wise the NA Akbari. The proof that it is a not is a lack of cultivable land but lack of the labor and peace which is the resulting into the decline agricultural production and fluctuating agriculture price as well. At the same time, the price is rise to benefit the peasant, but is unequally is according to the vertically divided section of peasantries. A state except to the tribute from the system of agriculture is a commodities and production that tied to the village and expensive network of commercial mobility and exchange. It is a noteworthy that respect for the major substance crisis in the South India between 1702 and 1704. The first seven declared of the 18th century in India were remarkable free of fame. The great is the Bengal fame of the 1770. It is which is estimated to the one third of their population, proceed to the occurrence is soon after the conical conquest. And this is followed by their another destruction is a mine in the northern India in 1783. The overall of favorable the land the labor ratio had enabled to the highly mobile peasant and tribal is a labor to be neglected is a reasonable term with the controller of land. But the case is a revenue a demand made the peasant is distractions are regular phenomenon and particularly in the northern India. Well, some village is a notable managed to the transform of revenue form into the heredity of the state and other fell their sequence from to powerful regional state as a Tippu as a Mysore. A population of production price and wage tended generally speaking to be on the gentle upward as incline and during to the 18th century. The fragmented political did not be hamper the development of the travelings of inland trade in the grain and cloth and cattle. Corporate or merchant institution are transcended a political boundary in our signing the transportation of good and the provisional credit and insurance of service. Pre-conical era artisanal is a labor, especially is a weavers, had to ample scope from successfully extracting extravagant or demand by the intermediate social group and the state. Even in intervasive state like a later 18th century, a monsieur appearing to attack the intermediaries rather than to the labor, evidence from Bengal and Madras and suggests that the urban labor was a versus of in relation to the state and the market in the earlier chronicle than there is the immediate of pre-colonial period. Being inland is traded well the Indian sweeper and merchant involved in export of trade decline in the force of European advance. The great is a Gujarati port, a city of Gujarat loss is important around 7020. The 7020 is the most important here. And there was a insurgence is a demand for India goods in the both West and Southeast Asia in the later 18th century in addition to the Europeans' demand. But by no British is a merchant and sweeper had achieved a dominance at the expense of Indian and took the bulk of the profit. As the old commercially center of the Surat is a Masulipatanam and Dhaka is a degenerated is a colonial and port cities like Bombay, Madras and Kolkata took there is a pride of place. But the decline of the Mughal capital of Delhi and Agra was upset by the rise of regional capital, including Lucknow, Hyderabad, the various Maratha city and Sri Nagapatnam, and there is a level of urbanization was clearly highly in the 80 than the century before. The 18th century before there is important and what had to change in the urban center was the relative balance of power between the ruler and merchants. In some instance is a commercial and financial magnate is there is aggregating himself a power of the state. It would be also appear for a variety of reasons that the mid 18th century the mark of significance changed economical sphere. For example, when the English East India Company got a hold on the revenues of the Bengal Sabha, their flow of the money was adversely affected. While the earlier Bengal received a gold and silver in exchange for its export, this pattern no longer held. In later part of the 18th century, the peasant were forced to cultivate contain a cash crop like indigo and opium. And this had observed there is impact on the food crop production. But another reason why the later half of the 18th century differ from the period before about 17,050, there is a changing character of their war in the post 1750s period. The welfare is become a more adaptive of the civil life and economical protection than before. And at the same time, the new techniques is a use made it is a far for more expensive proposition. This use of firm arms on the larger scale. The implement of the mercenaries and the maintenance of standing army. And all this is a hard and harmful effect. Here a social context. There is important according to the 18th century India. There is the social context. The social life is the 18th century. There is India was a continuation of the past legacy and despite of some universal feature of social culture unity throughout India over to the centuries. There was no uniformity in the social pattern. The society was divided into the multi-layered identities on the basis of religions. And religions, tribe, language, class and caste. There is a most important society divided by to the multi-layered identity. There is a religion, tribes, language, class, and caste. Hindu were divided on the basis of the hundred of caste. There is a most important here. The Hindu were divided on the basis of the hundreds of castes. The caste was divided by their birth, fixing the permanent place of the people in a social hierarchies. Intercaste is a materialist and the intercaste dividing was the foreigns and traditionally caste was the basis of their profession, but by the 18th century to some extent to social and professional mobilities was began to the followed. And for example, Brahmins started to adopting various progenies and periodics trading activities. The caste continued to be a major divisive force. That is important here. The caste continued to be a major divisional force. The Muslims were also influenced by the consideration of the race, caste, tribe, and status. That is important here. The Muslims were also influenced by their considering of race, caste, tribe, and status. The Shia and Sunni had a major religious difference. That is important. Muslim divided two parts. There are Shias and the Sunni had a major religious difference with the Iranics, Afghani and Turins and the Hindustani Muslim. Has a lot of difference to be stand apart from each other. People is converted to the Islam, carried there is a caste into the religion. The basic social unit was a family based on a practical is a pattern expect or Kerala, whereas a materialized system was prevalent. Women were to expect it to the live as the role model of the ideal daughter. Wave and the mothers, women of upper classes. In southern India had to follow up the child marriage is a prevention and the marriage was a social obligation between the two families. Among their upper classes, polygamy and dowries was the prevalent, but the greatest evil of the 18th century, India were a custom of the sati and the condition of the widow among to the Hindu. That is important here. 18th century, there is sati custom in their Indian society. The education system could not be changed according to the requirement of the time. It is important. Not education system could be not changed according to the requirement of the time. The curriculum and was confined to the literature, language, law, and religious is a philosopher and the logic and executed the study of physical and naturally science, technology, and geography. There is important here that is century. There is a study of the social, physical, and natural science, technology, and geography. There was a lack of progressive idea as a theoretical framework and dominated. Elementary education was a disparate and the mediums of higher education were Sanskrit and Persians only. Moreover, the education excluded female and low caste people. That is the most important here. Moreover, their education excluded to female and low caste people. The next topic is the most important here, the culture milieu. There is a most important, the culture milieu in the 18th century. Today I will discuss here 18th century of culture condition in India. There is a most important topic here. It is journalism maintained that is the 18th century a witness a general decline in the material life. The cultural life and period also has often been to the degraded and however there is the appear to be a little justification for such a portrayal of the 18th century. Even Delhi was the economical condition is a unique decline. Had a number of major is a poet and philosopher and thinker in the sports from to Shah Valehal and the Mir Taik Mir. And further is a resign to the court is again important. They tend to take on the function of the principle of tone of high culture, whether in a music, the visual art and literature. It is also is related to the dispersed center, or ranging from the Awadh to the Bikaner and the Lahore to the Tanjore. That is a fine their quarterly is the tradition of culture presiding and the Tanjore is under to the Marathas is a particularly fine example of culture reference, in which literacy product of high quality of Tamil and Telugu, Sanskrit and Marathi continued, with some of the Marathi rulers themselves playing a significant direct role. Similarly, it is the 18th century Athanaswar that the main is a composition of what is today known as the Karnataka and tradition of India classical music and come to be written by such as men to the Tyagaraj, Mutal Swami and Dextra and the Syama Sastri. Finally, the period of both the development of a distinct style of painting and Thanaswar. Fusing of element is imported from the northern with the older local tradition of textile painting. This volatility was not be restricted pure to be religious culture. To begin with many of their threads and music tradition, as well as a formal literacy as a generous of the period and picked up and the is an incorporated is a folk influence. At the same time, the interaction of popular Hinduism and Islam give a particular flavor to the culture activity associated with there is a pilgrimage and festivals. More than in the earlier century, the tradition of the long distance pilgrimage to be major center for the Varanasi to be a Rameswaram. Increasing and this can be a seen to be fit in with the general trend of increasing mobility. It was a common for a post-Mughal state to be employed to the mercenary and soldier and imported to the scribes as a clerk. In the 18th century, Hyderabad, for example, is a kastha from there is a north where is employed in there is a large number in the bureaucracy. In a Mysore, Maharashtrians, Brahmans, where is given to the physical of ficals as an official and earlier as the 7th to 20th century. It is apparent that is a mobility of the musician, man of the latter and artist was widely prevalent. When a major new political center emerges, it is rapidly and attract to the talent. As evidence is a Ranjit Singh as a Lahore. Here, Parisans is literature of high quality was produced, but not at a cost of literacy output in a Punjab. At the same time, new development were visible in the field of the architectures and their painting. This is important. Further to northern and principality of the Kangra is a fostered an important new school of painting. Devoted is largely of Vaishnava themes. The cultural assimilation was the outcome of mutual influence and respect. Among the major religions, the Marathas is supported the swing of the Sheikh Muhyiddin Chishti in Ajmer and the Raj of Tanjore financed the swing of the Sheikh is Sahul Hamid as a Nagur and Tipu Sultan of Mysore is supported the Sringavi's temple and the Muslim joyfully participate in the Hindu festival just as the Hindu were is a part of the Muharram's processions and indeed it to the surprising to the large proportions of what is understood today to be a part of India's traditional culture is the attributable to this is a period and also is a preceding century. The one next important topic here a debate and the problem in understanding their history of 18th century. There is a most important today discussion of 18th century of here, but the next topic is the most important debate and problem in understanding the history of 18th century. You know that the debate on the nature of the 18th century has engaged historians of a Mughal India as well as those interested in a chronicle study. Earlier Mughal study viewed the all changes in the shadow of the Mughal political is clasped and the project the period as a dark age. The Mughal is a political crisis is seen to be accompanied by the economical and social breakdown as well as however that is a study of the scrutinize of 18th century is economical and society is regional and is a perspectives is a preceding and the beginning of the colonial rule that is the characterized the second half of the 18th century. Thus, the two positions agree around the continuity is versus is a change paradigms, and generally the India is a historian is a perceive the colonial is a conquest which began from to the mid 18th century as a point of the departure for Indian history. So the basis issue of pertaining to the 18th century are two: whether fall of Mughal Empire and initially to the fall of social economic structure as well as, and secondly whether to the arrival of colonialism was a fundamental break or not. Was the 18th century a dark age or was it a period of economical boom? Did it mark a sharp break or was it a period of the communities and change? How the British power in India expanded during the 18th century? And these are other questions concerning their nature of politics, society and economics, religious and culture made of study of high history of the 18th century. The highly debatable. There is the most important here. The debatable here a political, society, economical, religions and culture made of study of history of 18th century. There is a debatable. Historians have traditionally viewed India as 18th century as a dark era of warfare, political choose, and the economical decline as a sandwich the between to stable and prosperous Mughal and British hegemonies. This view has a vigorous as a challenge by the most recent generation of historians. Indian historians, they are important and who have emphasized their continuities between the earlier Mughal and later British state and the constellations of a small successor state that is emerged with the beings of the Mughal power. The political turmoil which is affected the whole century. The force want to be asked whether the fall of the Mughal Empire, the lead to break of the central. The political authorities are trying their face of the synergies, firstly leading to the rise of regional kingdom, then the prevalent way of the dominance of British colonialism. Here it is important to understand whether it is just the decline of the Mughal state should be seen as the failure of the Indian society as well as there is a vacuum created by the fall of the central authorities and filled up by the regional power, namely is a Nawab of Awadh and Bengal and Nizam of the Hyderabad in the first half of century. However, whether the emergence of British state India and company as a political power was a break the Indian society, economical and politics, a market the beginning of next 200 years of British colonialism in India. There is the most important, the British here are 200 years of British is the colonialism in India. There is important period time.